So Pearl, and then we'll end with Fernando before turning it over to Marcelo.
Hi.
Hi,
I just
Pearl.
wanted I just wanted to put a spanner in the works. I just first of all I want to appreciate the papers that I was listening to. You would realize why they resonate with me in terms of the nature of knowledge that they discuss. But I wanted to put a spanner on the works using Melissa's paper and ask about the issue of fundamentalism, actually. Let me just give a short anecdote. In South Africa, anthropologists used to be very worried about tribalism and ethnicity and, and almost be scared to talk about ethnic groups, your Xhosa, Sisotho, Zulu, as if it was some kind of um, an African primate modernist notion that encouraged conflict. And that was rightly so in those times. However, it looks like when we focused on the nation and when we focused on any other identity, it seemed to have a scope to be fundamentalist as well. If you look at how South African versus foreign became a basis for xenophobia, I'm seeing a similar notion around cultural reference and religious reference generally, to a point where even the notion of human rights risks being fundamentalist. And so if I'm listening to Melissa's bold issue of restoration of the concept of this is prostitution and it is actually something that is degrading that you wouldn't list in a career list, and therefore the issue of the human rights approach that says thou shalt protect the human rights of the sex workers to practice their trade is actually problematic. So you have a situation where people who are using human rights are so fundamentalist in their own orientation that a moral issue is disregarded. You have a situation as well where knowledge in the religious circle is also reified to a point where you can actually see it making fundamentalism of patriarchy in the notions of quoting scriptures about men the head, woman the neck, women must support, but the context is not cited. Sometimes those are the fundamental issues that make women suffer a certain categorization, sometimes to a point of violence that is subtle in home setting. So I think that the issue of the potential for knowledge to be reified to fundamentalist levels deserves some kind of attention in our space of analysis. And I know that I have disregarded the notion of children specifically, but what I'm saying is that wherever there are human beings, we can abuse knowledge and reify it to a point where we classify people, and then even the most liberal concepts such as human rights can actually have negative impact. Thank you.
Such an important point. I'll bring Fernando, and then Melissa, you can respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Carola. I wanted to go back to the conversation of universities and how they can help us address the COVID crisis and build back better. Because it seems to me that the big innovation since the UN was created in 45 and today is the proliferation of universities around the world, 28,000 of them. I mean, think about the capacity, the human talent residing in those institutions. And I think it is in recognition of that potential that this report on the futures of education, which I mentioned yesterday, for the first time since the three reports that have been written addresses universities in every single chapter on that report. The first report, produced in 72, devoted 2 lines to higher education. The second report, published in 96, devoted 2 pages. This report on the transformation of education talks about university in every single chapter, essentially saying this will not happen if universities do not make it happen. But the question is then, so how do we get these 28,000 universities to actually do what they can, which Jack has described, Adam has described, Jeff has described? How do they get them to do engaged scholarship in partnership with organizations that are solving real problems? And I will refer exclusively to the field of education, which is where I work, by which I mean K through 12 education. I wonder if a simple thing that could be done, in addition to the incentives that Adam and his colleagues are working, is to change how we evaluate universities. When I look at what has distorted, corrupted universities in the last 20 years, are the rankings. Not because there is anything wrong with the rankings, but because the rankings measure the wrong things. The rankings that we currently use to assess universities, which I assure you matter to Jack, they matter to Marcelo, they matter to each and every one of our presidents and to our trustees, essentially are measuring how many people do you exclude and how many papers do you publish in journals that your colleagues consider prestigious. Has no connection to whether those journals have any impact. But I do think that we could all learn from something that Jack has supported in Georgetown, in, I think it's called the Center for the Study of Education and the Economy, which has done pioneering work in beginning to change the conversation of higher education by making information available to the public about the employment prospects of people who study in different fields and in different institutions. And I can tell you that that information is powerful. I served for 7 years on the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education. This was the period when Deval Patrick was governor, when President Obama was president. And we began to engage our universities in a simple exercise of saying, we need to give information to the public on what are the employment consequences of pursuing different fields in different places. Boy, did we get universities to push back. It was tough. I mean, they went straight to the governor. They went to Congress because our universities really are beholden to many masters. We know that. And so I wonder if this group, this academy, couldn't begin an exercise when we began to measure, so what is the social impact of the university? But let's just start counting. How many of these partnerships do you have with schools and what do they achieve? Not partnerships that produce papers in the same journals that have high impact factors that no educator actually reads, but actually begin to document what difference are you making in how many teachers we produce, what kind of teachers, changing the schools. I think this is entirely doable. Maybe we should ask Jack to lead this effort, building on what you've done already with the Center for the Study of Education of the Economy. I do think that universities respond to that information. In this book, which I didn't mention yesterday, which is a study of how a number of universities during the pandemic partner with K through 12. To be very frank, one of my reasons to write this study was to get more universities to do the same thing. So for example, I intentionally didn't study Harvard, but I studied Arizona State University and MIT. And then I gave these to my president and I said, look what our colleagues at MIT are doing. And you know what? We all respond to those things very well. We all respond to knowing what is the university next door, the one that I'm comparing myself with. So if we had systematic information that we could provide to trustees, to societies, to our students, I'm convinced that our students are ahead of the faculty and university administrators in really wanting to address the SDGs. And if we began to make visible for them, this is a university that is actually going to help you, is going to give you the skills that will make a difference. And this is a university where maybe you will learn to write papers in high impact factor journals, but they don't do so well in terms of helping you gain these skills. I think it's an experiment worth attempting, at least on a small scale. That's what I wanted to say.
Melissa, I'm sorry. We have 15 minutes to wrap up, so I think we should end on this if that's all right with you.
Later, I need to correct some misinformation.
Just in the interest of the overall conversation, have a time problem. Fernando, thank you very much for that. That was very insightful and lots of food for thought, actually. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will be very, very brief. I will make 3 points. First, I bring you greetings from Monsignor Marcelo Sanchez Sorondo. Monsignor is today in the border in Misiones, in the border between Argentina and Brazil, in the beautiful jungle and in the beautiful Iguazu area, who was sent by the Holy Father, and he has sent via WhatsApp his warm greetings and his gratitude to all of you for making the journey. Some of us in vivo, some of us in virtuo, to participate in this conversation. So thank you, muchas gracias from Monsignor Marcelo. Second, we will develop, we have customarily, and it is the codified. Oh, there is Monsignor. Marcelo, decí unas palabras, por favor. We can hear you, we can hear you. I think you're on mute.
Okay, one moment. Gabriela, I have one moment, please. I follow all the meeting from Argentina, from Misiones. I am here already. I arrived, and it was fantastic. Congratulations for the different speeches and also for the discussion. Really, I think that the conclusion could be very important for us, and very important to have an orientation. Congratulations and many thanks to all the participants. Many thanks, Marcelo, por organizar this. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you, Monsignor. Thank you so much. We have been asked and gently urged by Monsignor. It is the codified and customary practice to develop a joint consensus statement, all of us together. And this will be first published by the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences, and Monsignor will bring the statement to the Holy Father, who will read it carefully, review it, and therefore our responsibility is to produce. Our responsibility is to produce a pithy, on-point, clear statement about the consensus we have arrived over the last 2 days of our work together. So I will be asking you, and some of us have already done so. Fernando, thank you for your exemplary work in this. Thank you to David Bloom and a colleague. Aisha, thank you so much for already sending us the synthesis of what you would like to see in a common statement. If you can collect your thoughts, be brief, and send us, you can send it either to Stefania, or you can send it directly to me, a brief synthesis of the points that you believe are most significant emerging from your own journey and from your own contributions during our work together. So that's the second item. If I could have those by the end of the week, early next week, I will endeavor to produce synthesis, and then I will, before proceeding, I will send that back to you for your A or nay, and you can sign your name to the statement, or you can choose not to sign your name to the statement. So that's the second item. The third item is the University of California Press has indicated a strong interest in publishing the chapters that will be rewritten in the next few months as part of a very, very interesting and a very special new initiative of the University of California Press. What they propose to do, following the standard scholarly peer review process, is to release the book as a book, but also to release the book as a free online downloadable option. And the press has had a lot of success in distributing important interdisciplinary work that has international implications through this new vehicle. So what I will work very closely with Monsignor Marcelo. I will take the lead in working with you in the development of the book version of our joint work together. We have this will be the third. We have two wonderful, wonderful presidents with Jeff and Stefania and so many of us. We will release soon the book based on the work inspired by Pope Francis's Global Education Compact. Will be released by Columbia University Press in the next few months. And I'm very, very honored and very happy with that book. The book it has a preface by the Holy Father, and we will make sure that you all get copies of the book when it is ready. An earlier version of this work was again inspired by the call of the Holy Father to address systematically the issue of forced migrants and refugees. And that was a volume that was developed in the University of California Press series, and is a very, I think, important contribution. And I think it has one of the earliest real systematic and serious studies on climate change as a driver of mass migration by our colleague Ram Ramanathan and his colleagues at the University of at the Scripps Institute in UC San Diego. So I will reach out to each and every one of you with some general guidelines for the development of the next iteration of your contributions. I very much hope that you will have them back to me by, let's say, September 1st. That will give you enough time to reflect upon our joint work together, to update your contributions, and to add perhaps perspectives that flow from the nature of the conversations and the exchanges that we had during our 2 days of work together. And I will then take the volume once we are ready to Naomi Schneider. Mary, you know Naomi well, who will work with us in developing, in first getting the book reviewed and approved, and then developing the print and the online free downloadable online version for publication. With that, I want to say how grateful I am for your journey. These are very, very difficult times, and coming to Rome at this time, I think, embodies the ethic of care, the ethic of responsibility with which we are endeavoring to get in our own individual and as importantly, collective efforts to respond to the call of Pope Francis to outline the contours of this pandemic in the context of all the pre-existing structures and processes that we've come to discuss over the last 2 days, and to imagine and to build the vehicles for a world that remains ever more miniaturized, ever more interconnected, and ever more fragile. With that, I'm grateful. I hope you have a safe travels back home, and we will continue our endeavors together. Thank you very much.